1,000 soldiers defeated an entire Nazi army without firing a gun? In World War II, the Nazis controlled most of Europe with overwhelming military force. But there was one unit that the German High Command never saw coming. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops were not your typical soldiers. They had no tanks, no heavy artillery, and no intention of engaging in conventional combat. Instead, they used something far more powerful: deception. This was the Ghost Army. 1,000 men armed with inflatable tanks, fake radio broadcasts, and psychological warfare tactics that would outsmart some of Hitler's most experienced commanders. Their story was so classified that most of the world didn't know it existed for 50 years. But what they accomplished changed military strategy forever. And the techniques they pioneered are still being studied in war colleges today. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops began as an unconventional idea in the United States Army. Military leadership recognized that as they pushed deeper into Europe, they needed a unit that could move quickly and provide critical support without requiring massive manpower or resources. In 1944, the Army officially established the unit with just 1,100 soldiers. Most of them were artists, sound engineers, and creative thinkers rather than traditional combat soldiers. Among them were illustrators, painters, and musicians who understood visual design and acoustic principles. These weren't the soldiers you'd expect to see on the front lines. Many were younger, some were from marginalized backgrounds, and nearly all of them had skills that seemed irrelevant to warfare. But that was precisely the point. The Army recognized that winning battles wasn't always about firepower. Sometimes it was about outwitting your enemy, about making them see what wasn't there, about controlling the information they received. The 23rd was designed to be exactly that, a unit that could deceive, misdirect, and confuse enemy forces through creative tactics and psychological pressure. The technology behind the Ghost Army was deceptively simple yet remarkably effective. The soldiers were equipped with inflatable tanks, trucks, and artillery pieces. These weren't crude rubber toys. They were sophisticated rubber and canvas constructions manufactured by the same company that produced life jackets for the military. Each inflatable tank weighed only about 35 pounds and could be inflated by hand or with portable pumps in under 10 minutes. The illusion was enhanced by clever engineering. The inflatable tanks had realistic shadows cast on them using ropes and poles. The soldiers would position them in formations that matched actual tank placements used by the real U.S. Army. From the air, they appeared completely authentic. But the visual deception was only half the battle. The 23rd also used sound. They had sound engineers who recorded the noise of tank engines, artillery fire, and truck movements. These recordings would be broadcast using amplified speakers positioned throughout their false camps. German scouts or reconnaissance aircraft would hear what sounded like thousands of vehicles moving and positioning themselves. Combined with false radio transmissions and fake military communications, the enemy believed they were facing a massive, fully equipped force. The success of the Ghost Army wasn't just about clever props and sound effects. It was grounded in deep understanding of military psychology and decision-making under stress. German commanders were operating under enormous pressure. They faced uncertainty about American troop movements, resource constraints, and the constant threat of losing territory. When their scouts reported a massive American force, they had to make critical decisions with incomplete information. This is where the Ghost Army exploited a fundamental flaw in human cognition: confirmation bias. Soldiers and commanders expected to see American forces, so when they encountered evidence of those forces, they believed it. Their brains filled in gaps with assumptions. A distant sound could be interpreted as tank engines because tanks were expected in that area. Radio signals confirmed the presence of troops because radio signals meant soldiers. The Ghost Army understood that people believe what they expect to see and what confirms their fears. They didn't need to fool the entire German army. They only needed to fool the high command long enough for real American forces to move into position. By the time German commanders realized the deception, it was too late. Real American soldiers had already advanced, occupied new territory, or secured strategic objectives. The psychological impact was enormous. German forces diverted resources, changed defensive positions, and reorganized their strategy based on phantom troops. The Ghost Army executed over 20 major operations between 1944 and 1945. One of their most daring was Operation Fortitude, where they helped convince German high command that the Normandy invasion was a feint for a larger attack in Calais. They positioned fake radio transmissions and inflatable equipment to suggest a massive American force was preparing to land further north. German commanders held back reinforcements that could have decimated the actual Normandy landings. Another remarkable operation occurred during the Ardennes Offensive, also known as the Battle of the Bulge. German forces launched a surprise counteroffensive through snowy Belgian forests. The American line was collapsing. The Ghost Army was positioned near Toul, far from the immediate combat zone. They quickly inflated thousands of fake vehicles and broadcast convincing radio transmissions suggesting they were a massive mechanized division. German scouts reported the presence of this force. German commanders, already overstretched, chose to avoid this area and redirect their limited forces elsewhere. This single deception likely saved thousands of American lives. The soldiers themselves often felt the weight of responsibility. They were young men creating illusions that would determine whether their comrades lived or died. In one operation near Aachen, the unit spent an entire night setting up a false camp while real American forces withdrew under cover of darkness. German reconnaissance photos the next morning showed what appeared to be a full American position, while the real soldiers escaped to safety. The true measure of the Ghost Army's impact lies in the lives they protected. By successfully deceiving German forces and preventing German reinforcements from reaching critical battle zones, the unit directly reduced casualties on the American side. Military historians estimate that their deceptions saved between 3,000 and 4,000 American lives. This number only accounts for direct combat savings. The ripple effects were far greater. When German forces were misdirected, they couldn't reinforce their defensive lines. This meant real American soldiers faced weaker opposition when they actually attacked. It meant fewer grenades thrown, fewer machine gun bursts, fewer artillery strikes. Each prevented German reinforcement multiplied the protective effect. Consider the psychological benefit as well. American soldiers knew that somewhere behind the lines, other soldiers were using creativity and innovation to save their lives. The morale boost from knowing you're being protected by the ingenuity of your comrades is immeasurable. The Ghost Army operated with minimal weapons and no traditional combat training because they didn't need them. They accomplished more with inflatable tanks and sound equipment than many conventional units accomplished with real firepower. After the war ended, the unit was quickly disbanded. The soldiers returned to civilian life, many never speaking about their service. The remarkable irony is that they saved thousands of lives using deception and art rather than bullets and bombs. Their story challenges everything we think about what makes someone a war hero. For nearly 50 years after World War II ended, the story of the Ghost Army remained classified. The United States government kept the unit's operations secret for several important reasons. First, military strategists wanted to preserve the deception tactics for future use. If the methods became public knowledge, potential adversaries could study them and develop countermeasures. The psychological techniques, the equipment designs, and the tactical approaches were considered valuable intellectual property. Second, the military wanted to maintain the strategic advantage of surprise. If hostile nations understood how the Americans had used deception, they might anticipate similar tactics in future conflicts. The Korean War and early Cold War made this security concern particularly acute. Third, the government faced political sensitivities. Many of the soldiers in the Ghost Army were from minority backgrounds. Some were individuals who faced discrimination in American society. The unit had included Japanese American soldiers, African American soldiers, and others who faced systemic barriers. Publicly celebrating their contributions might have created uncomfortable questions about discrimination in the military and society at large. The classification also reflected Cold War paranoia. Military intelligence agencies wanted to ensure that no information about deception tactics reached Soviet counterintelligence. Not until the 1980s and 1990s did researchers, journalists, and veterans advocates begin pushing for declassification. It took a concerted effort to bring this story to light. Today, the Ghost Army's legacy extends far beyond their World War II operations. Military academies and war colleges worldwide study their tactics. The fundamental principles they demonstrated remain relevant in contemporary warfare. Modern military strategy emphasizes information warfare, psychological operations, and the strategic value of controlling perception. The Ghost Army proved these concepts decades before the digital age. Their work influenced how militaries think about asymmetric warfare. By achieving disproportionate results with minimal resources, they demonstrated that creativity and psychological understanding could compensate for numerical disadvantage. In recent conflicts, militaries have applied similar deception tactics using electronic warfare, fake communications, and coordinated disinformation campaigns. The principles are identical, only the technology has changed. The Ghost Army also inspired a broader recognition of non-combat roles in military success. They showed that soldiers didn't need to fire weapons to protect their comrades. Artists, engineers, and creative thinkers became recognized as essential to military operations. Today, military units include specialists in cyber deception, information warfare, and psychological operations. These roles trace their legitimacy back to the Ghost Army's groundbreaking work. Perhaps most importantly, their story reminds us that victory isn't always determined by who has the biggest army or the most firepower. Sometimes it's determined by who thinks most creatively, who understands human psychology best, and who dares to use unconventional methods. The Ghost Army transformed how we understand the nature of warfare itself. The Ghost Army's story teaches us that the most powerful weapon isn't always the most obvious one. 1,000 soldiers without. If you want more videos like this, subscribe and follow History Untold. See you in the next one.